And now to that horrific drag racing crash caught on camera. The car flipping about half a dozen times. Behind the wheel, the star of a reality show who has been criticized for promoting a dangerous type of street drag racing.
One moment, he was flying down the track at nearly 200 miles per hour. The next, his car was tumbling through the air like a rag doll, disintegrating piece by piece while millions of fans watched in horror. When Daddy Dave's mangled body was pulled from the wreckage, nobody knew if he'd survive the night, let alone ever race again. But what happened after that crash tells a story most people never heard. From his humble beginnings on the underground streets of Oklahoma City to becoming one of the most respected names in racing, this is the untold story of Daddy Dave. Long before Discovery Channel came calling, Dave Comstock was already a legend on the back roads of Oklahoma City. While most people know him from television, his real reputation was built in the shadows, on unlit highways and empty industrial strips where real street racing happened away from the spotlight. Dave didn't come from money or racing royalty. He was a working-class gearhead who spent every spare dollar in late night building cars that could compete with guys who had twice his budget. That hustle earned him respect in the underground scene, where your word and your driving meant everything. The nickname Daddy Dave came naturally. He was a family man first, balancing his responsibilities as a husband to Cassie and father to his kids while chasing a dangerous passion most people couldn't understand. That duality made him relatable to fans who would later discover him on television. He wasn't some reckless adrenaline junkie. He was a regular guy with extraordinary skills. Behind the wheel. By the time Street Outlaws producers started scouting Oklahoma City's racing scene in the early 2010s, Dave had already built a reputation that preceded him. Other racers knew his name, they knew his car, and they knew that when Daddy Dave pulled up to the line, they were in for a real fight. But getting selected for the show was just the beginning. What Dave would build next would cement his legacy, and eventually nearly cost him his life. Every legendary racer needs a legendary machine, and for Daddy Dave, that machine was Goliath. The 1963 Chevy Nova wasn't just a car, it was a statement. While other racers relied on traditional setups, Dave went a completely different direction, stuffing a massive twin-turbo Hemi engine under that classic body. The combination was unusual, controversial, and absolutely devastating on the track. When Street Outlaws premiered in 2013, Goliath immediately became one of the most recognizable cars in the series. The aggressive stance, the unmistakable sound of those turbos spooling up, and the raw power it put down made it a fan favorite overnight. Dave wasn't just competing anymore, he was must-see television. But fame brought pressure. The 405 list that ranked Oklahoma City's fastest street racers became the center of intense rivalries, and Dave found himself constantly battling to maintain his position. Names like Big Chief, Murder Nova, and Monza weren't just competitors, they were. Frenemies locked in a never-ending chess match of call-outs, grudge races, and ego. The show amplified everything. Suddenly, races that used to happen in private were broadcast to millions. Every win was celebrated nationwide. Every loss was analyzed by armchair experts across the internet. The stakes grew higher with each season, and Dave responded by pushing Goliath harder and harder. He kept modifying, kept tuning, kept chasing more power. The car that had once been considered revolutionary was now being pushed to its absolute limits. And in the world of high horsepower street racing, limits have a way of finding you when you least expect it. What happened next would change Daddy Dave's life forever. August 2015, Amarillo, Texas. The air was thick with anticipation as Daddy Dave lined up Goliath for what should have been a routine pass. He'd made runs like this hundreds of times before. But something went terribly wrong. At approximately 185 miles per hour, the car suddenly lost control. Witnesses described what happened next as something out of a nightmare. Goliath left the ground and began tumbling violently, flipping end over end as pieces of fiberglass and metal scattered across the track. The car that Dave had poured years of his life into was being torn apart in real time. When the wreckage finally came to rest, there was complete silence. Then chaos. Emergency crews rushed to the scene, fearing the worst. Somehow, impossibly, Dave was still alive inside what remained of the car. He was airlifted to a nearby hospital with serious injuries, including multiple broken bones. Doctors weren't sure what the outcome would be. The racing community held its breath. Social media exploded. With prayers and well wishes, footage of the crash spread across the internet, with millions watching the horrifying moment on repeat. For days, updates were scarce and fans genuinely didn't know if Daddy Dave would pull through. Behind closed doors, the situation was even more serious than people realized. The injuries were extensive. The road to recovery would be measured in months, not weeks, and the psychological damage, the idea of ever getting back behind the wheel of a car capable of killing him, was something nobody could predict. Most people in his position would have walked away permanently, but Daddy Dave wasn't most people. Recovery was brutal. The physical therapy alone would have broken most people, learning to move normally again after your body has been through that kind of trauma. But the mental battle was even harder. Imagine knowing exactly what it feels like to lose control at nearly 200 miles per hour. Imagine closing your eyes and reliving those seconds of helplessness as your car disintegrates around you. That's what Dave faced every single day during his recovery. The nightmares, the flashbacks, the very real question of whether the thing he loved most was worth dying for. His family stood by him through all of it. Cassie and the kids became his anchor, reminding him why he'd earned that daddy nickname in the first place. He wasn't just racing for himself, he was racing for them, to show them that setbacks don't define you. Slowly, Dave began making progress, first walking, then working on cars again, then sitting behind the wheel of a stationary vehicle, just getting used to the feeling. Each step was a victory against the fear that could have consumed him entirely. When word got out that Daddy Dave was planning to race again, reactions were mixed. Some called him crazy, others called him a legend. But everyone understood one thing. This wasn't a man chasing fame or money. This was a man refusing to let the worst moment of his life become his final chapter. The day he finally strapped back into a race car was emotional for everyone who'd followed his journey. But the question remained, could he still compete at the highest level, or was the Daddy Dave of old gone forever? Coming back was one thing. Staying competitive was another challenge entirely. Goliath was destroyed beyond repair, which meant Dave had to start over. Building a new car from scratch while the rest of the Street Outlaws roster continued evolving wasn't easy. But Dave adapted. He built new machines, experimented with different setups, and refined his approach to racing. The game had changed while he was recovering. No Prep Kings and other spin-off formats were becoming increasingly popular, and Dave had to learn new tracks, new surfaces, and new competition. What impressed people most wasn't just that he returned, it was that he remained genuinely fast. This wasn't a feel-good comeback story where everyone pretended he was competitive. Dave was actually winning races, proving that the skills that made him legendary hadn't disappeared. His rivalries evolved too. The old guard from the original Street Outlaws still battled regularly, but new names entered the mix. Younger drivers with faster cars and fresh attitudes pushed everyone to keep improving. Dave embraced the challenge rather than resenting the new competition. Behind the scenes, he also focused on building his business. The auto shop became more than just a racing operation. It was a legitimate enterprise that could support his family regardless of what happened on the track. That maturity set him apart from racers who never planned beyond their next pass. The Daddy Dave who emerged from that crash wasn't the same person who'd gone in. He was smarter, more calculated, and arguably more dangerous because he'd already faced the worst and survived. Today, Daddy Dave remains one of the most respected figures in street racing. He continues to appear on Street Outlaws programming, competing in No Prep Kings in America's list, while maintaining his position as an elder statesman of the 405. His relationship with fellow racers has evolved into something deeper than competition. The guys who once wanted to destroy each other on the track now share a bond forged through decades of shared experiences, including watching each other face death and come back. That brotherhood is genuine, even when the trash talk gets heated. Dave's social media presence keeps fans connected to his journey. Regular updates on new builds, race results, and family moments show a man who's found balance between his dangerous passion and his responsibilities. He doesn't hide from the reality of what happened to him. He uses it to connect with fans who appreciate authenticity over manufactured drama. The auto shop continues to thrive, giving Dave stability that many professional racers never achieve. He's built something lasting, regardless of whether he wins another race or not. That security allows him to race for love rather than necessity. Perhaps, most importantly, Dave has become a symbol of resilience for the Street Outlaws community. When younger racers face setbacks, crashes, mechanical failures, personal struggles, they look to him as proof that comebacks are possible. Daddy Dave's story isn't really about one crash or one comeback. It's about a man who found his purpose on the ragged edge of danger and refused to let anything take that away from him. He could have died on that Texas track in 2015. He could have walked away and lived a quiet, safe life. Instead, he chose to keep racing, keep building, and keep proving that passion doesn't have an expiration date. In the high-stakes world of street racing, that kind of heart is rarer than horsepower.